No. It's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show. Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. I am your host, Ross Bartachek, and joining me is a long-lost podcast friend, Mr. Lars Underbakke. Lars, how you doing?
Just living the dream, man. It's been a long time.
I know it. I mean, between our 6-month hiatus and then just, regular schedule in general, it's been a while. Are you glad to be back on the mic?
Always glad to be back on Potentially Dangerous.
That's right. Well, this is long time no see because we were just together, a couple days ago in Carver Hawkeye Arena. What did you think about the Who's Number One event? Let's kind of start with that.
I thought it was really good. The production was good. There was a solid crowd, great wrestling. Talking to some of the guys from Flow afterwards, talking to you, just thought there was really great matches and some super impressive kids, wrestlers. Just watching these guys warm up and the way they prepare and the way they battle. I thought, we have some kids in Iowa that can compete, but you really see that, top tier national kids, and it was fun to watch.
100%. So they announced attendance as being like 2,500, but I know you and I were talking that we felt that it was at least over 3,000, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely thought it was.
So they had pretty much the middle sections on both sides of the mat, full, I don't even know, 3/4 up, maybe a little bit less than 3/4 full all the way up.
Up to like the curtain, so I can't think of exactly, how far the curtain would be up there, but yeah. They were fairly full up to the curtain. There was just nobody on the ends, really.
Right. So, it was a good crowd. There were good matches. Obviously, there's a lot of Iowa flavor in it. We got to see a couple Iowa recruits, an Iowa State signee, former Iowa State All-American. Was there a match in particular that kind of stood out to you that you wanted to talk about?
I think there's a couple involving both schools. Patrick Kennedy, I thought looked really impressive. Facundo's the number one recruit in his class, in that junior class. I know he was giving up just a little bit of size, but I thought Kennedy looked really, really good. Watching him finish on his feet was a lot of fun.
That first shot, his to that ankle pick, it was lightning, man. I was sitting there and you blink and he was there on the ankle. It was nuts.
Yeah, and then the way he was transitioning through his finishes too. Once he got it up in treetop, and then he was, bringing it down and swinging. He was doing all kinds of stuff to get him down. He put him down hard. So I thought that was a really fun match. Iowa State should be excited because Echemendia, oh my goodness, he just absolutely dismantled Saunders. And Josh Saunders has been a top recruit for as long as I can remember almost. I remember this kid being talked about in junior high. Remember watching him at Conflict at Carver, all different things. And he just didn't even look like he belonged on the mat. Super impressed with Anthony, and I can't wait to watch this kid at the next level.
He is a man-child. If he's, oh my gosh, he's already got he's got the build of a guy that's been in a room for 3 years. I suppose that kind of helps that he's been wrestling, on a national team level for Cuba all those years before he defected. His dismantling and just straight powering through. Were you down in the room an hour before the event watching warm-ups? Right?
Yeah, I watched some of them. Yep.
Echemendia, I think we were in there and he was doing flips and it was just him warming up, right? Wasn't it?
Well, it was him and then Bo Bartlett too. Both of them just stood out watching them warm up, just the athleticism and
So
everything.
as I say, like you and I got there pretty early, and Etchemendy is just like doing flips and like just back and forth across the practice room. And then like an hour later, I ran down there. I can't remember what I had to go do, and I think I was just kind of watching everybody warm up. And Etchemendy was still just running and doing flips, and they were like, "Man, he looks pretty crazy. Like that's he's really athletic." And I was like, "He's literally been doing that for an hour. I was here an hour ago." I came back and he's doing the same thing. And then he came out and he, just overpowered Saunders. And it was like, clearly he didn't wear himself out just doing whatever his aerobics. I don't know.
Yeah, it was wild. He's a special talent, it sure seems like.
What'd you think of that Jesse Ybarra, Jakason Burks match?
I thought it was really good. I've had the chance to watch Burks wrestle a decent amount of times, and always been super impressed. So I didn't know what to expect. You don't get to watch California wrestling quite as much, so you never know what could happen. But I thought it was good. It was a good close match, and he was able to get that finish on the right on the out of bounds line there at the end and stuff, and a huge win for him and Carver. And I thought Ybarra looked real tough. I was a little surprised it was 3-1. Both those guys seem to like to get after it at times, so that one surprised me a little bit. But good match, and good for him to get that win under his belt. And you could tell he was really happy to be in Iowa City, and all the wrestlers were pretty excited for him and Kennedy. And we even talked about a little bit, even Sokol. There's still definitely something there, it seemed like, with the Iowa wrestlers and Ryan Sokol as well.
Yeah, the fan support in general, like you said, seemed pretty loud. And then the wrestling team, I can't remember which match was it. They started doing the wooing. They were wooing.
That was beginning to Kennedy's, I think. Yeah.
And then they were Marinelli just was yelling Kennedy, and then he got Jacob Warner just yelling it, and so they were just trying to get a whole bunch of people just yelling Kennedy. So they were pretty fired up for their Iowa recruits. They were pretty excited to watch Pat Downey wrestle. they're big.
Yeah, I think everybody was kind of excited. Yeah.
What did you think of that match? I want to get your thoughts, and I'll tell you what I thought too.
I don't know. I mean, Rodriguez is an absolute monster. The guy was just huge, but you had to kind of figure in freestyle wrestling, maybe it would kind of go that way. I thought maybe with his power and size, PD3 would have a little bit tougher time throwing him, but you had to know, the push outs would probably come into play, and he had a couple of those. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a mismatch in the actual wrestling.
Yeah, because you could tell Downey would have had no issue getting to the legs, and you could tell he wanted to end it on a throw.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, there were so many times where his positioning where it's like, Pat can just drop down and grab this guy's legs. And, he got so close on the edge that one time, and they went out of bounds, and his face was visible, just like, oh my God, like that was his chance. He was going to launch him. Didn't get the opportunity, then he ends it to, win 12-0. So just, I felt like the entire rule set was way in Pat Downey's favor. I mean, don't get me wrong, Nick Rodriguez, his thing is grappling, right? But Pat Downey's no chump when it comes to upper body. So I felt like Rodriguez's strength coming in was pretty negated because Downey's got no problem tossing you on your head.
Right, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was something cool, and it got a little bit of extra eyes on the wrestling world for a short time, so that's always great, but definitely a mismatch.
Yeah, it was a good duel overall. I like the things I saw out of, Jesse Ybarra looked pretty tough. I think, defensively, he's probably still got a little bit of work to go before he gets to the Division I level, but keeping it tight with Burks is pretty good. I mean, we all know he's pretty tough being in a neighboring state. We get to see him. I think they usually go to the Council Bluffs Wrestling Classic, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I feel like we've seen him around too, and then obviously with Any Wrestle, we're pretty, those Any Wrestle guys love Jacason, so we're pretty familiar with him, and just kind of knowing he's pretty good talent. You kind of hit everything you need to know about Echemendia. The one thing I did want to add was Iowa State seemed, they obviously Metcalf was there, but he brought David Carr in with him, and Carr was warming up with Facundo, and obviously Iowa State's really trying to build their future recruiting classes, and having a guy like David Carr around the same weight as Facundo is probably a pretty good selling point to begin with. So I know those Davison boys, those ties run deep. So it's always a plus to have Metcalf on the staff and kind of winning Alex over. But I think with David there and just seeing those two being able to drill and get ready for who's number one, it didn't go Facundo's way, but it's not surprising at this point if that's where he ends up and doesn't go to Michigan, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was standing there when he walked into the room, down in the Iowa wrestling room, and the second Facundo walked in, him and David Carr locked eyes, and they were side by side. They were joking around, warming up, talking. They were with each other the whole time, so there's definitely a strong connection there. And David Carr, just a really great kid, and what a representative for your university, and coming off of winning the world title. He's the perfect guy to be out there, talking to these guys and helping them kind of a little bit on the recruiting scene as well. So it never hurts to have a guy that caliber on your side.
That's right. Did you have any other takeaways from who's number one?
I don't really think so. It was just fun being there, seeing all the, lots of good high school wrestlers, tons of great college coaches, watching all these guys walk through from all over the country, being all in the arena at the same time and stuff, kind of gets you fired up for wrestling season. I've been dragging my feet, jumping into all this stuff. Now we got Night of Conflict coming up, did the Fab 50, now got back into the arena, seeing all these guys kind of gets you fired up and ready to roll again.
Yeah, juices are flowing, man. Ready to go. Let's get into the Fab 50 then, because that's kind of something that we've been wanting to get on the, a topic of discussion on the podcast. And just to make clear what the rules are, it's all grades except for you hate freshmen, right?
That's right. I can't stand freshmen. I was actually told on Twitter that I shouldn't be talking about freshmen yet because they're not had any high school competition. So I'm sure you saw that argument that somebody tried creating. But no, it's really, we're going to make them prove themselves. We do it in our high school rankings as well. We don't rank freshmen in that first set. We want to see them up against these guys before we think that they, really belong in that top 50.
So every other year, it's been real close. You got, however many years ago, it's pretty much when you're putting out your first list, it was like Colin Shriver, Cale Happel. Those guys were wrestlers that you probably could have thought about putting on the list right away, just because they kind of had those middle school accolades. They were, and I don't even know if Shriver was an All-American before he even got to high school at Fargo. I'm not 100% sure, but then, it's kind of similar with AL, right? He was a guy that, we knew eventually he's going to be on this Fab 50 list. So are there any freshmen that, they're definitely going to be on that next list, I guess is where I'm trying to get to?
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting. There's always some smaller guys, guys like Ryder Block, Gable Porter will definitely be a couple names to keep an eye out at 106. But really, Jessaroga from Southeast Polk is going to be a big-time name to watch out for. He's going to Super 32 this weekend. I can't wait to see how he does down there. He's definitely a dynamic freshman. And then there's a couple of bigger guys that I'm kind of interested to see. Probably both be at 160 from what I'm hearing. So you've got Ben Keeter from Iowa City High and Tate Naktaborn from Linn-Mar. And jumping into a weight like 160, maybe even bigger. We'll see. I saw Tate at who's number one, and this kid's gotten just huge. So I'm interested to see how they do against those upperclassmen at an upper weight, but they're definitely a couple of names to really keep an eye on as well.
All right. Well, let's get to the actual list, and we'll kind of go through. So there's, quite a few changes with all the seniors graduating, but obviously the biggest one is we got a new guy at the top. So what's the argument to make a change at the top?
That's a tough one, man. Colin Shriver's been there. He was number one last year. I don't know. You'd like to think it's not because of him getting injured, but it obviously, he got 6 at state last year after injuring out. But I think the thing that hurt him more than anything, or not necessarily hurt him, but propelled Drake was while Colin couldn't go to Fargo, Drake was able to go to Fargo, improve himself again out there. So him winning, that winning his Fargo title. He was second last year, I believe. What did he get? Yeah. No, he was a cadet freestyle champion. Now he's a junior freestyle champion. I don't know. Just extra accolades for Ayala just kind of pushed him over the top. Shriver's the only Super 32 winner from Iowa. He's got Fargo titles. You just can't go wrong with either guy. I just think Ayala's just elevated his game so much. You can tell with, the way recruiting's going, but really getting that extra Fargo title again this summer kind of pushed him over the top.
I think it's fair. There's only 2 guys right now that have, a cadet and junior national title, and that's Colin and Drake. And I'm trying to think, Drake, they both had a gap year between their titles, and I feel like, I can't remember 100%, but Drake's placing between that gap year and Colin's, I think Drake outplaced what Colin did. I think
the year between. So
yeah, and Colin might have got 6th that year between his, but you mentioned that Super 32, and Drake's going out there, and he's got a chance to be the second high schooler. Do you think? I was going to get into Super 32 a little bit later, but he's obvious. National-wise, is he one of the top guys at his weight? I don't even know who's all going at his weight class. I'm just assuming he will be.
Yeah, for sure. I saw a thing from Willie the other day that there's 200 kids registered at 120 pounds. So you never know. Anything can happen if you're wrestling that many matches in 2 days. It's kind of a crapshoot in a lot of ways. And everybody there is going to be just awesome wrestlers, but I'm sure not going to count out Drake Ayala. I think he's as good as anybody in the country, and I can't wait to see what he does at 120 pounds. And he's just steadily growing, and kind of trying to prove that he's a full 125 pounder for these college coaches. Can maybe even get bigger. So I think he's got as good a shot as anybody to win this.
Yeah, he's got a really big 3-week stretch here, or I guess it might be over. No, it is 3 weeks because he's got Super 32 this weekend. Next weekend he'll be in Iowa City for his official visit, and the weekend after that he's heading out to North Carolina for his official visit there. It's a pretty big 3 weekends. He can really up his stock. He's got it, so that would be his 3rd and 4th official visit. So we could.
Did you see that North Carolina plane at the Fort Dodge Airport last weekend?
I did see that, and I also don't know how they fly in that thing.
No.
So let's see. Do you want to talk about those 2, 3, 4? Those seem like pretty obvious picks.
Yeah, we already got into Shriver a little bit. 3, 4, Happel, Allard, both 3-time state champs. Kind of look to be on that path for their 4th. Been super impressive. Allard's only got 1 loss in high school. Happel's got, I think, 5. And then again, we go back to Fargo as a huge thing. They were both got 3rd this year. Happel got 3rd in freestyle, had a great tournament. Allard went out, I can't remember, was it 10 straight matches in Greco? He loses first round, comes all the way back for 3rd. We've had a chance to watch these guys a ton. I've seen Happel wrestle, seems like 100 times, and Allard's been in a bunch of our events, and just both super impressive wrestlers, super impressive kids, real dynamic, both headed to UNI. To me, they were an easy choice behind that. Really, in some ways, Happel maybe had an argument to even be higher.
Gee, you were there for his like first high school match, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been at a lot of Lisbon tournaments, dual meets. I live pretty close. I've seen him wrestle a lot.
Then there's kind of a bit of a surprise. We got like one of our first big movers is at number 5, guy at Southeast Pokes, Gabe Christensen. He jumped up from 42 in the last list.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously been a big mover shaker. Maybe some people would say he was a little low last year. He had also, gotten 6th, gotten 4th, hadn't, really made his big jump. You could tell the potential was there. The thing that I try to do with this list, it's sometimes hard, is not judge it as much off of potential as actual results. So the fact that he hadn't been in a state final kept him down a little bit. But then this year he goes out, has just a dynamite year, wins state title, and then goes out and he's a double All-American in Fargo. 5th in freestyle, 3rd in Greco. Just has had just an amazing year. So Gabe Christensen, to me, has just made huge jumps, and it shows on this list. And Cody Fisher right behind him was a guy who was a lot higher last year, same weight. He's, 2-time runner-up. He goes and gets his first state title. He's a double All-American, actually loses to Christensen at the Fargo tournament. So, they slot in right next to each other there at 5 and 6.
And when you did your list, I'm not 100% sure, but had Christensen beaten Braxton Amos out at Akron? Or was that counted in or not?
I think I had started it before then. Okay. He was already kind of in a similar position at that point, but hadn't finalized it yet.
Gotcha. No, I mean, Christensen, everyone's kind of known about his potential, and he's kind of really putting it together. Like he's getting his wins, he's getting his consistency where it makes sense, where he jumped up that much. Do you want to talk about the next couple guys on the list?
Yeah, Caleb Ratchey, another guy that everybody seems to have known about since before high school. He's come in and proven it. He got 2nd as a freshman, losing a tight match to Oldham in the finals. He goes out and wins his first title last year as a sophomore. He's a big national name. He's done lots of stuff. Didn't have the Fargo he wanted, but he was 3rd at postseason nationals. After last season, he was a cadet runner-up last year at Fargo, so he does have, even though it wasn't this year, he does have a lot of accolades that way in freestyle as well. Matthew Lewis, this is kind of an interesting one. Not a lot of off-season wrestling. He hasn't done as much Fargo. He did it a couple years ago. I know he was close. He didn't quite make the stand, but he won quite a few matches. Didn't go this year, but he is a 2-time state champ already. Got a shot to be a 4-timer. He's only got, I think, 3 losses in high school, and 1 or 2 of those are out of state. I've always been impressed with Lewis. I think he deserves to be up here. I'd like to see him do a little bit more Freco, but it is what it is. I'm not going to fault him. It's not like he's lost either. And then Griffin Little, another huge jump from off the list. Wasn't even on it last year. After his freshman season, he had lost 17 matches as a freshman, placed 5th, made another big jump, got 2nd this year, went out, had a great Fargo, double All-American, finalist in freestyle. So Griffin Little makes a big jump. And then, rounding out the top 10, obviously Jack Thompson, just steady leaps from 7th to 3rd to 1st, goes undefeated, beats Eli Lloyd at War at West Gym. We have Jack rated as our top uncommitted senior right now, and real dynamite kid, D1 talent for sure. So got him in the top 10 as well.
How big is Griffin Little? Do you know, like size-wise? I can't remember.
I think he's right around 270, I think is what I've seen. But he seems bigger. He's a big man.
Is he going to be? He's probably. I mean, he's not as big as like Tristan, where size, like height wise, right? I mean, he's.
No, definitely not. I'm guessing he's still though. Probably, I'm seeing him up close, 6'3", 6'4", maybe.
Well, I obviously making that comparison because, like Tristan, we're probably going to lose Little to the football field in the future. But even though
Yeah.
I think he's probably got quite a few wrestling offers, but I think he's got quite a few football scholarship offers.
Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say, I guess I don't know if he actually has an Iowa scholarship, but I thought I saw he got an Iowa State one. Maybe I don't follow football very closely.
I think he's got Iowa too. I think he's got a good amount of schools already at the D1 level for football.
Yeah, so he really blew up this summer. Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah.
So
Then we start getting all the sophomores.
I was just gonna say, let's talk about that slew of sophomores there in that 15 range, up to the top 15 range.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's seen. I've kind of been hyping this sophomore class. I think they got a chance to be one of the best classes we've seen in quite a while. Come out of the state of Iowa. Some really huge names here. I got Avila at 12, Hayden Taylor 13, Nick Hamilton 14. You only skip one and then you get into Volker and Fausik and Garvin. The list goes on and on. There's just all kinds of sophomores on here. Most of these guys were in the state finals last year. I know Volker wasn't. He's still pretty high. He's one of those guys. Again, he's at an upper weight, kind of sometimes hard for these guys to jump in against these upperclassmen. But he had some really nice wins last year. He goes and wins postseason nationals. He's a double All-American at Fargo. And this kid's a sophomore. I don't know if you've seen him. He's up around 200 right now, and this guy he's a man. He did not look like a freshman. I know he turned a lot of heads at state, so, Volker's high as well. Fausik, Avila, Taylor, Lopez, and Anderson, for sure, are all state champs as freshmen. So there's quite a few guys there that still have that dream alive as well. So
we really hyped the 2018 class, Teskey, Thompson, Blockus, Biscaglia, Bennett. There's a whole bunch of guys, right? Is this sophomore class, where do you see them in comparison to that 2018? Because that's probably the last really good class we've had.
Yeah, I think these guys got a chance to end up right in that same ballpark. There was quite a few D1 kids in that class, some real high-level guys, and that's kind of the way I look at this class as well. I think they're in that same range. And really, I know we talked about in 18 that was probably our best class since, 05 when we had Borschel and LeClaire and all those guys, Mueller and Morningstar, Anson and Beatty.
Yeah, we could go on forever about that 05 class.
Yeah. And I think this class definitely has a potential to be in that same range.
That's pretty high praise, but we'll see. I mean, some of that, we got some matches coming up. We could talk about once we get done with the Fab50. Some of these guys are going to have an opportunity to prove it against some upperclassmen that I think will go a long ways. And if they're beating some of these seniors, they'll go a long way in showing how good and how ready. I guess how far ahead of the curve they are is what I'm trying to get to. So, where did we stop? We talked about
we kind of got down towards like Lopez and Anderson there.
All right, so we're in the 20s now. Who's standing out 20 on?
Well, one name that kind of stands on this list that was definitely an interesting one to try to place would be Brandon O'Brien. I know there's been lots of talk about BOB here. Another one of those kids. He's been on the radar. Part of the problem is he's just not very big. He's small. He struggled at times in folk style because of it. Wrestling up at 106, and he was really definitely not there. So he's had his moments. He had a good year last year, really even a good year the year before. Actually wrestled some JV as a freshman because they were so loaded down there. Last year he got to state, didn't place, wasn't on the Fab50, but then just goes on an absolute tear once the season's over. He ends up as a freestyle finalist, gets second in Fargo. He's a Greco champ. He was a postseason national champ. He got fourth at Fargo the year before. So the accolades just go on and on and on. When it comes to freestyle and Greco, when he's wrestling, I think he was 88 last year, 100 this year. So he's growing. And I'm really excited to see what he does now in folk style now that he's gotten just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, that's
another name. I mean, there's other names too. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Bob was the one that I was wondering if you'd get to that. He's so hard to place when they're making those wins at 100. At Fargo, you don't really know how to place them, and you've kind of already hit on it. But this is supposed to be more results driven, not projections, anything like that. And obviously the state medals play a big role. So really looking forward to see what the Bob can do out at Super 32 in this coming season. You can go on with your list though. Who else you're picking?
Yeah. Definitely some other names. Blake Thompson's a name that kind of stands out for me. He's been one that's been right there in the mix every year. Last year, it looked like he was on trajectory to be in the state finals. There was an illegal slam called, questionable. Lots of stuff happened, so that doesn't help. 3-time place winner. He's gotten third 2 years in a row. I think he's better than that. Didn't get that opportunity to prove it at state last year. And really, he is a good Freckle wrestler. He doesn't have the Fargo All-Americans, but he's a kid I look at and think, maybe he's even better than where he's at. Aiden Riggins is another one. I know he didn't have the finish to his year last year at state, but he's a name that everybody's, always kind of had on the radar. He's a really good wrestler. Sage Walker is another one. He got second last year, had a really, really fun year. He was a 2018 Fargo All-American. He got hurt at state, wasn't able to go this year. So again, kind of like Schriever, it's like you don't fault him for it. I would have loved to have seen him there. I think he's a really good wrestler. I think Sage Walker's kind of has people sleeping on him right now a little bit. I think he's capable of being maybe a D1 wrestler as well. I don't know that he's getting that love without the state title and without being able to go to Fargo this year, but Sage Walker's definitely a name I would keep an eye on.
He told me that he's been talking to Campbell recently.
Yeah.
And obviously he works out at Eastern Iowa, so I know, Iowa's obviously aware of him just because they have him practicing in Carver or whatever many days a week. But he's at least getting some D1 looks. But I don't know if the attention's hot and heavy like you're saying, like he'd probably want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think he'll maybe get an opportunity. I don't know if the scholarship will be there like, maybe should be, but he's a kid in that mix. Another one that's kind of interesting for me here that I can't wait to see next weekend at Night of Conflict is Justin McCune. I think he's a similar kind of guy that's just made huge leaps through high school, from really not even being on the radar as a freshman. Had a good year, placed as a sophomore, and then last year just really, really made his way in, made the state finals, had a good summer. He's a guy I'm really interested in. I can't wait to see him, up close again and see what he does this coming year. I think he's a sneaky good recruit as well. Carson Tenold's a name that sticks out here in the 30s from Don Bosco. Him and his twin brother, both big-time studs. I know after war at West Gym last year, we had some D1 coaches and stuff already asking, who those kids from Don Bosco over there. They were super impressed as well after his freshman year. So definitely he stands out as well. He's a good football player and everything. So he's got some options, being a big guy. So we'll see where that one goes. Lots of good names. Aiden Noonan wins state last year, goes undefeated. Cody Anderson's been a high place winner multiple times. So lots of great names on this list, all the way down to number 50. Kind of a tough one as well. Trayton Kasich, state champ this year, and he's number 50. Might seem a little weird, but he didn't even qualify until his junior year. He was a non-qualifier as a freshman and as a sophomore. Really probably not one of the tougher weights in the state last year that he won, but still, he went undefeated. He won a state title. Can't take that away from him. So he makes his way on, and obviously there's some really good kids that didn't get into the Fab 50. So
what was harder, trying to figure out to go Ayala over Shriver, or trying to pick who was the 50th guy?
Probably the last 10. You really struggle with those last ones. you know who the top guys are. Maybe there's a little bit of, sorting them out. When you get in that 40 to really 60 range, there's a lot of guys that you can really consider there. I know there's a couple guys that I had ended up taking out right at the end. So there's some kids here. I'm sure this could be some motivation for them. There's a few runner-ups. There's some 3-time state place winners that aren't on the list. So, maybe those guys didn't have a whole lot of accolades in the off season either. I'd like to see them wrestle a little bit more freestyle and Greco to help boost their names, get them on there.
Yeah, I'll let you kind of say the guys who are considered, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there that for everybody that did throw a fit for maybe someone they wanted to be on the Fab 50 didn't make it, or like, how did we not consider so-and-so, or, this person didn't get any love. I'm going to just give you guys, I'm going to peel back the curtain here. Lars puts together this spreadsheet and sends it to all of us for kind of feedback. And I'm not kidding that there's 100 names on this list. So, there's just as many people that didn't make the list that are in the somebody he looked at that made the list. So, obviously, I just kind of want to put it out there that there's really nobody in the state that was forgotten. Right?
I'd like to think that. Pretty much all the place winners are on this list. There's some guys on this list that have never placed at state, but have done well at postseason nationals or Fargo, or had some big wins. I try to turn over all those rocks.
Yeah, to say you didn't to consider somebody would be woefully incorrect. Do you want to toss out any of those names that were just kind of missing the cut, or do you think we're good to move on? I'll let you decide.
There's definitely a few. There's a guy like, a couple more sophomores. Isaiah Weber, Jace Rhodes are both state runner-ups. They were in there. A couple guys like Brock Espelin, Easton Larson are both, and Caden Kozlarek are all 3-time place winners. Cole Cassidy from Martinsdale St. Mary's coming up to Wrestle Night of Conflicts, gotten third the last couple years. So those are definitely some of the names. Cade Teenold as well. We saw his brother. He didn't quite make that cut. So definitely some names that were in very strong consideration for that list.
Yeah, well, I was happy with it. I think, for the most part, this was a kind of a quiet year for the Fab 50 overall. Still got a little bit of feedback, but I don't think there's very much doubt that you put together a good list here, Lars. So you ready to move on and talk a little bit about this Night of Conflict event?
Let's do it.
All right. So we took a year off, but we're back. We got the 4th edition of the Night of Conflict coming to you. What is this? It's October 19th. It's going to be at the 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. I have to actually read that because that's probably one of the hardest locations in Waterloo. It's Waterloo, Iowa, but it's 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. Never can get it right. Never say the words in the right order if I'm not reading it. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. First whistle blows at 6:30 p.m. Folks have already been out on our website looking at Eventbrite, buying tickets. Pretty sure we've sold some VIP tickets. I've seen some emails come in.
Yeah, for sure.
So we announced, 9 matches initially. As of the day we're recording, we announced 3 more, and we got a pro match to talk about too. Do you want to talk about the first 9 announced first?
Yeah. Again, got some fun matches. We talked a little bit about some of those freshmen coming in. We're not going to rank them yet, but we get to see a couple of them up close and personal. Gable Porter from Underwood, Mikey Baker from West Sioux. Both these guys are going to have some say in 106 pounds in 1A this year. Really a lot of Western Iowa flavor this year. We really wanted to get those guys in, give them a chance to be seen in Eastern Iowa as well. Some people don't think that they get the love they deserve. Maybe they don't. We'd love to have more coverage out there. We'd love to have people out there that were willing to help us out. But Underwood sending him. They got Blake Thompson. We talked about him a little bit, coming in against Cody Anderson. These guys are both 3-time place winners, really good wrestlers. Stevie Barnes from Underwood coming as well. He's taking on Jacob Weininger from Nashua Plainfield. Jack Gaukel from Sergeant Bluff Luton, I think, is a really almost underrated or underestimated guy in the state. He's a 2-time runner-up. Really, really good wrestler. I think he's going to be real tough to beat this year. Taking on Evan Yant. You know, everybody knows the Yant boys from Waverly. Waverly wins state title last year. That's going to be a fun match. McCune from Red Oak taking on Ashton Barker from Iowa City West.
I was just going to say.
You heard that right. He was at Liberty last year, first ever place winner in Liberty. He's at Iowa City West now. Damon Houston, we saw him at War at West Gym, taking on Braden Graff. Transferred into West Sioux this year. Austin Kegley. This guy is a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if you've seen much of Kegley. He's got a lot of big moves, a lot of firepower there, taking on Hagen Highstand from Logan Magnolia. And then probably 2 of the bigger ones we announced right away. Wyatt Volker. We went linked with him against Spencer Mooberry from Osage. I know he didn't have the finish he wanted at the state tournament, but again, another dynamic kid. These two had I think it was a 6-5 match at state last year in the quarters. Both really, really good wrestlers. And then Nick Hamilton, one of our top sophomores, double All-American, out at Fargo, taking on Jack Thompson. So get to see the sophomore versus the senior, kind of a good gauge of exactly where Hamilton is at. So a lot of Western Iowa flair, a lot of really, really good kids, fun matchups, I think a lot of even matchups. So I can't wait.
Both those Underwood now sophomores are going to have a good test to see where they're at as far as against a little bit upperclassmen. That Thompson and Hamilton match probably going to be fire.
Yeah, it's got to be. Those two involved, it's got to be.
Then we announced 3 more today, and there's obviously one big headliner there. But what do you think about the 3 matches announced today?
Yeah, I'm excited about these as well. Kane Loonsman's another one. Got hurt last year at state. He was just doing great, had a phenomenal year, was going well through the state tournament bracket. Ended up right at the end of one of his matches getting injured, had to default out. It was just terrible to see, but he placed 4th as a freshman. He was right in that mix for a state title last year. He's taking on Cole Cassidy, from Martinsdale. He's a 2-time 3rd place medal winner. I think that's a really evenly matched bout there. I think if you don't know Loonsman, if you didn't see him at state last year, I think he's going to be right there with them. And then you have, I think, just a fun style matchup. Gene Obana from Centerville. He's a 2-time runner-up, short, stocky, just stays in really good position, hard to move. And then you got the wild card. You got Gabe Lewis from Denver. He's a couple-time state place winner, and he likes to get after it. He'll throw. He'll do anything. I think he'd trip you, spit in your face, whatever he has to do to score points. This guy's going to get after it. So Gino Bana's going to try to stay in good position. Lewis is going to try to open him up. So I just think style-wise, that's going to be a really interesting match. And then the big one, Robert Avila from Lisbon and Matthew Lewis from Centerville. We talked about them right away. Both really highly ranked in the Fab 50. Avila won as a freshman. Lewis already got 2 titles. Both guys kind of on that path to possibly being able to win 4 state titles. I'm really excited. I think this is great. I was really excited they both agreed to do it. And to me, this is a real highlight of the event.
Right, and I think most people are probably circling Avila, right? He's got the national accolades. He's, he's been out at Fargo. He's ranked, for his grade by Flowrestling, and I'm sure by the open mat. Matthew Lewis, we've only seen him in state, so it'll be really interesting if Lewis is able to pull that match out, because that might be, that's a real eye-opening moment for people. Like, holy crap, if Matthew Lewis gets this done. I don't know. That's kind of why I'm really interested in that, because I think a lot of people are thinking of Avila, and I think that's probably where the smart money's at. But I want to see if Lewis, I want to see what he's got to show on, with a really high-level opponent. So
Yeah, I agree. Beal's got some really big wins. He beat Rathje at the War West Gym. He's done it all. He's been all over the place. And like I say, it really gives Lewis, maybe he's a little under the radar. It gives him a name or a chance to really put his name on the map, have that signature marquee win before he head into his junior year. Coaches can now recruit juniors. I think this would be a really big night for him if he finds a way to pull that one off.
That's right. And we got a senior match, which apparently might be public at the time of recording. So do you want to talk about that one too?
Yeah, we'll bust it out here. We got the champ, the people's champ. March, everybody was all excited. You and I got their first national champ in a long time. Drew Foster is going to be wrestling up in Waterloo against, four-time All-American Willie Miklas, Missouri, Iowa State, by way of Southeast Polk. So, yeah, national champ, four-time All-American, both training, you and I, Iowa State, Iowa boys, born and bred. I think it's a really fun matchup. These two obviously both like to get after it and score points as well. So,
you got the man they call Doc and the guy that's been in college long enough to be a doctor.
True story.
That's right. I mean, Willie's a grad assistant. I don't know how he's a grad assistant for Iowa State. Dude's got to have every grad degree already. He loves it when we make fun of him for his age. Oh, no. So that should be a really fun match. Really looking forward to seeing Foster transition to that freestyle scene, see what he's got. And Miklas, obviously, I mean, he made a lot of bread and butter in high school wrestling freestyle, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
That should be a good match. Do you want to talk about Super 32 a little lightly here? Kind of, I mean, outside of Ayala, we don't have anybody that looks like surefire contenders for a title, right? But is there anybody you're looking forward to maybe having a breakout?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about Jessaroga. Nathan Jessaroga, I think he's a name to watch for sure at 106. Obviously, this big step up in competition, but I think he's a name to keep an eye on. I look for him to probably make the stand in my eyes. Carter Fausick, we didn't see a lot of this summer. He had an injury he's been fighting. He was state champ at 106 last year. He's jumping up to 13. So I'm really interested to see, he was always not real big at 6. So I'm interested to see how he does up at 13. Yeah, I mean, I think those are definitely a couple names. I'm trying to think of who I'm missing here. Of course, I didn't have this list up. Anybody sticks out for you?
I was just going to say, Ryder Block. At 106, it's kind of one of those guys that catches hot. I mean, in those brackets, they're always big, and there's always guys that get pretty close. There were years where Aiden Reeves was, he wasn't really, I don't even know if he was knocking on the top 20 rankings-wise, but he made a run. I don't know if he placed or if he just missed the podium the one year, but it seems like we always have a guy at 106 that you don't really think that, he could place, but I don't know if he really will. Somebody always makes a really deep run that you don't expect, and I think Jessaroga is somebody that a lot of people are high on. So I'm not really putting him in that category because I think you're right. He's one of the guys that more pencil in for a podium spot.
I think both the Union guys are really intriguing.
Yep.
Jack Thompson and Adam Aronson. Aronson obviously had a big summer out at Fargo, but see how he can do in the folk style scene nationally. We already talked a little bit about Jack. He's right there with a lot of these guys. If he could make his way onto the podium or make a deep run, I think that'll just help him in recruiting as well, prove that he belongs with just everybody out there. So,
yeah, I agree. Those are the other two guys I probably would have picked out. Other ones, there's other interesting names, right? Like Adam Allard, Aiden Riggins.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, there's other guys that we're definitely not discounting. I guess Hayden Taylor's not going, right? That's what we talked about in our group chat.
Yeah, his mom got a hold of me and said that she did sign him up early, but he's really in the football mode right now, and he's, from what I understand, gotten quite a bit bigger than he was last year. I know he's hit a growth spurt, so he's just kind of focusing on all that right now, and he'll get to wrestling here after football's over.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he might have been a guy that we probably would have talked about a little bit more had we known he was going, and he was on the Super 32 list. So that's why he ended up in our preview to begin with. But
yep, yeah, Ryan, we hit on him a little bit, but again, he's up at 106 again. Against all these guys, we'll see what that size looks like. He's a couple years older now. So I'm interested to see if O'Brien can make a big run in folk style.
Yeah, for sure. B.O.B., man, let's see it. Put us to shame. Put us to shame. Make Lars put you higher in the next Fab50.
That's right.
Is there anything else you want to get to tonight? Anything else that was out there in the news for you?
Not really much I can think of. I think, obviously we want to talk Fab50, Night of Conflict. Go get your tickets. I think that weekend was a little bit tough in between Super 32. You got preseason, got a lot of stuff going on, but we were still able to put together what I think is a really fun card. I think there's a lot of really, really great matchups. So, go out, show your love. There's a tournament going on all day. Everybody needs to get back in the swing of things here with some wrestling. Visit the Dan Gable Museum while you're at it. Let's get everybody fired up.
Head out to the 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center in Waterloo. I tried to do it without reading at that time. October 19th, you can go to iawrestle.com. It's sticky there to buy tickets. You can go to our Facebook page, has the post sticky to find it. I mean, you can literally go to any one of our social media to find how to get tickets to this event to go watch it. Lars, do you got anything else you want to throw in?
Yeah, the one other thing I was going to say quick, I almost forgot, was Jared Sima, Kansas, committed to UNI. Since the last time we did a podcast, I think we've hit on Allard, we've hit on Echemendia, some of those guys that have committed lately. But yeah, dipping into Kansas, getting state runner-up. Jared Sima, I think he projects right around, 57, 65. I know there's some questions there with Cade Lara's health. Will he be able to wrestle again? So I think that makes this one even more important, being able to sign or get a commitment from Sima. I haven't watched him a ton, but I think it's a really good fit. He picked him over in Nebraska, North Dakota State, some really good schools. So I think that's a really big get for you and I as well.
They're building a sneaky good class quietly. I mean, yeah, Happel, Allard, Sima. I felt like Snodgrass. Is that what?
Yeah, Nevin Snodgrass. That's a really, really good recruit.
But yeah, that one came out of like left field. It was like, oh, okay, we're getting serious here, right?
Yeah. You expect them to get some of the Iowa guys for sure. And they've got some other ones too. But Snodgrass, to me, is that's a game changer. That's a really big name out of Ohio. There's all kinds of schools looking at him, Big Ten country, all that stuff, and UNI goes in and grabs them early. I think that's a huge gift for Schwab and the Panthers.
100%. And then I think Ethan Bastille out of Florida was another. I mean, he's a nationally ranked dude that. I mean, I feel like UNI just when they pick out a recruit that commits, it's like, who got to find out about this guy now? Like he just comes out of nowhere and he's solid, right? He's great. And that's what they do. They find those gems and they polish them off, and so no, they're building a good class. So
for sure.
Alrighty, well, that's what I got for tonight. So you can follow my co-host here, Lars Underbakke. He's at Lars IA Wrestle on the Twitter. I'm at Ross Beachek. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Hopefully we'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast. It feels good to have the conversation flowing again.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back.